So this is week 2 of my 12-week plan to run a 5-minute mile and squat 500 pounds in the same day. In this video, I'm not only going to talk through my training plan, but because it's Mental Health Awareness Week, I want to talk through my current situation. I don't want to only document the highs, I want to document the lows. Partly for myself, so in 10 years I can look back at this and see what I went through, and partly because if anyone else is struggling, you can see that you're not alone. So this week's training, I'm going to look at it on my phone because I'm going to be throwing up videos of me training and everything you can see. You'll be seeing one of my 800 meters from today. I bought myself a drone. That was cool. Basically, the way that this week worked out as same as every other week. So Mondays is a lower body day. Tuesdays is a zone 2 run. Wednesdays is a zone 2 machine conditioning. This week it was the bike and an upper body session. Thursday's complete rest. Friday's my main lower body session. And then actually this week I'm doing a Saturday morning track session and a Saturday afternoon strength session. Trying to give myself that extra rest day on a Sunday just to see like what does it feel like going into next week. Because normally running on a Sunday and then going into my lower body day on the Monday, it's not actually causing too much fatigue at the moment. I'm not really noticing it, but it is something that I do want to be aware of just to play around with. See if the 2 rest days within the week allows me to push harder on those other days. The way it worked out as is my Monday session was pulls squats and pulls deadlift. I did like 160 for 7 pulls reps on my back squat, and then 2 back off sets, and then I did 2 sets of stiff leg deadlifts, so like 1, 2, 5 I believe. So upper body work, a zone 2 run on that Tuesday. My main lower body session was quite difficult actually. I did a 195 kg for 1 rep. That was quite difficult. That actually felt stupidly hard. I don't know if I just mentally wasn't in it. And then 190 for 5 reps. That was quite good. That actually felt all right. Once I managed to like get my balance right. In the first rep, it almost threw me forward, but like managed to get my balance right on my feet and like it felt a lot better. And then I did a 5 at 165 deadlift. My deadlift's always been a problem for me. I'm probably overthinking it, but it's not the focus at the moment. So we're not going to be focused on that. We're just kind of keeping that ticking over. And then my main track session, which you'll see on screen now, is an 800 meter warm up. And then we did 6 by 800 meter intervals between like a 320 and a 310 per 800 meter pace. When I ran the mile last week or 2 weeks ago, it was a 6:07 mile, and running 320s down to 310 is purely because I was doing a lot more mileage today. I wanted to just see, can I sustain almost that pace of the 800 meters? As next week we're going to be looking to do like a 6:40 minute mile, 4 mile intervals next week, 6:40, go 6:35, 6:30, and see if we can get down to 6:25. Because it's consecutive miles and actually doing that test, it shouldn't be balls to the wall, but I do know that this is going to be one of the hardest weeks of the block, hence why it's week 3, because then week 4 we will test. The feeling on the last few intervals, basically my lungs were like feeling it. I'm getting fitter. I can tell I'm definitely getting fitter because my recovery between sets is getting a lot better. And I'm basically trying to transfer my knowledge of like programming for strength training and transfer it into running and conditioning work. And it's not normally my bag. I've programmed for triathlons, I've programmed for 10Ks, I've programmed for a lot of runs. So I do know what to do. I know that when doing any type of training, we don't need a massive amount of work to be at this moderate intensity level. We want it to be basically easy conditioning work, or we want it to be hard conditioning work, which is why at the moment I'm doing like 2 zone 2 conditioning sessions a week and a zone 4 hard conditioning session. The reason that is because like we want to manage fatigue, and that's part of the reason these upper body sessions aren't that difficult as well, and that's part of the reason why the volume on all of my lower body stuff and all of my strength work has come right down as well, because we're trying to play a game of like, can we work as hard as we can in these sessions, and can we get the volume right so that we don't put ourselves in this recovery debt so we can't perform each session. Now, the balance when thinking of recovery stuff is actually the fact that you do need to work hard enough to need the recovery. So all of it to some degree is pretty speculative with this, and that's part of the reason why I like it, because I'm not only doing this to try and squat 500 pounds and run a 5-minute mile. I'm doing this to improve my knowledge around programming. Can I program runs? Can I program conditioning? Can I put this hybrid training plan together? And what do I get from it? Does this improve my skill? Do I improve my understanding? And I think that's the thing with any endeavor that you kind of go after, whether it's a fitness thing, a work thing, whether it's just a personal development thing. Whatever you're trying to achieve, whatever the goal you set, the goal is actually to improve yourself and is to come out of it being better for one reason or another, either to improve your knowledge, make mistakes and learn from them. I'm going to get to some of my mistakes soon, and to create yourself and rejuvenate yourself and reinvent yourself with a newfound knowledge and newfound understanding of whatever it was you were trying to achieve. But within that, you learn. And within that, you also come against struggles and you come against problems. And these are the things that actually are going to be what create you in the future, right? And I've always been very future orientated, not because that stops me being present, but because if I know where I'm going and I know the person I'm trying to create, I can be present with the things that I'm doing currently. And I think what I've noticed recently is anytime that I'm struggling to be present is because I haven't learnt the lesson or finished the task at hand. I haven't understood something properly. I haven't finished something properly. And when you're in a situation where you haven't taken something the whole way through, when you haven't fully committed to something, when you haven't fully come to grips with something, or you haven't fully understood it, that's where it stops you being present in the moment, because you'll be thinking about that thing. And that's where taking some time to really sit back and have a think about that scenario, about that situation, try to get to grips with it, allows you to be present in the moment. And that future orientated part of myself is driven from the fact that I know that everything I'm doing right now is actually building me in the future, and me in the future and the person that I want to be in the future is dictated from today. So who I am today is probably because of who I was a year ago, or who I was 6 months ago, or 12 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, you know. Our whole life creates the person we are now, and knowing that means that the things I do today, I will sacrifice today for that future person, knowing that that future person will be better and a better version of myself. This part is for myself, but particularly for anyone who is going through anything tough right now. I want you to know that you aren't alone. Back in the middle of Feb, I had 3 massive events occur to me, all in the space of a 2-week period. I lost my brother, I lost my nan, and me and my girlfriend, who had been together for 5 years, we bought a house together, we ended up breaking up. The reason I'm going to document this is not for sympathy, it's not for clout, it's not just for content, it's for myself mainly, and then it's for someone else who is going through these types of struggles. I think one thing my counsellor said to me 5-6 years ago was, document your process, document what you're going through, because you'll forget what it feels like. You'll forget what it feels like to be going through the things you're going through. And I've got journals all the way back from 2019, and I'm so glad I did that. Well, March 2020, I believe, or April 2020, and I'm so glad I did that, because I can look back through my journals and see the issues I was dealing with there, right? I can see the problems I was coming across. I can probably see some patterns that are occurring then that are occurring now. And documenting this will hopefully allow you and give you the permission to be going through whatever you're going through. Because I know that a big part of it for me, when culture at the moment is very much confused about what it means to be a man, and understanding that I am at an age where I am at the precipice of that debate makes it quite difficult when I'm someone who struggles with my mental health. And the reason is because as a man, you're there to be a provider, or at least this is what we're told, and this is what I believe, and this is what we may internalize and believe ourselves. And I think this is the main thing that I think is important, which is reality may be different than our perception. So if I perceive something to be true or real, then to me that's true or real, right? But that may not necessarily be truth. But to some degree it doesn't matter, because perception will be greater than reality. And because of that, it just means that if I believe something to be true, no matter what someone says, I still have that belief. So even if someone's telling me, but you don't have to do that, or that's not your responsibility, that's this shared thing, that's not just you, that doesn't necessarily matter because of what I believe. And if I believe that that's true, then that to me is true, and that to me is something that is important to me. The reason that's important to me, we'll get on to, the reason that's important to me is probably through my growing up and learning through my earliest attachments what it means to be a man, trying to piece together when not having so much of a stability of a kind of a male figure in my life that like I could trust and look up to. That's quite difficult to then piece together what it means to be a man for yourself, right? So you're trying to just amalgamate this version of a man based upon what the people around you, so my dad, my stepdad at the time, like people I worked with, people on YouTube, like people in podcasts and books that I'm reading, and trying to just get this picture of like what it means to be a man. And I think it's quite difficult because a man has to be a provider, but a man has to be emotionally intelligent to be able to understand people, to be empathetic, to be able to like financially provide so there's security within a relationship, to be able to be assertive but not too aggressive, but to be aggressive when it's needed to be aggressive, but also to be able to, like, any problems and any issues that may come up in a violent manner, like having to be able to control situations, to be ambitious, to be a family man, to be someone now who helps with chores around the house, to be someone who cooks, who cleans, who does all of these things. And as a man, I think like there's this thought process of wanting to provide, just naturally, instinctually wanting to provide, because as men, there's nothing else that we really can do. Like as a woman who bears a child and then brings it into the world, a man's only job is protection and security and safety of that woman as they're going through that period of time. And it's not his sole responsibility to say that the woman can't do that. It's just something that is innately within us, right? And I think the reason that's been quite difficult for me over the years is because I've been trying to build a business. And trying to build a business means that you have nothing for a long period of time until you have something. And that something may never come. And that means that you're basically stood there pissing into the wind, going off of your best bet, learning everything you can learn, improving your skill set, and trying to give something to the world that the world will accept and pay you for. And then when they do accept and pay you for that, it might not be years down the line that you actually see some benefit for that. The reason that's so difficult is because you then labor that on top of someone, myself, who has self-esteem issues and feels like he's not good enough. Because then not only is there this feeling of I need to provide and I'm failing because I'm not earning that much money, I'm failing because I'm not being able to provide that safety and security, but I already have this self-esteem issue within inside me, which means that I'm actually questioning my worth, not only as a man, but just as a human being. Because when you're born, you're innately valuable. You're brought into the world, and because you are here, you are so lucky to be here. Of all of the events that have happened over billions of years to get you to be alive on this one small blue dot in the middle of the world in endless space, is unbelievable amount of things had to go right for you to be that and to be here. Which means that you're innately valuable. But if perception's greater than reality and we don't perceive our own self-value, and our own self-worth, then that doesn't matter. Gratitude and being grateful for those things and grateful for the things in your life is really important for you to center yourself and to ground yourself. And ground yourself in the present and the reality, because it's what are you grateful for now? Grateful for the wind on my face. I'm grateful for the fact that the sun is shining. I'm grateful for the fact that I get to sit here with a roof over my head and do this video. That gives me stapled in reality right now. And when we think about the deficit that we're in, that normally creates motivation for us to do something about it. The problem is when you have childhood trauma come into play, is that the motivations to do something about it are squirrely, it's messy. And it's not necessarily right when you want to act upon something. I have been at rock bottom 3 times in my life. Okay, this is the third. And I say rock bottom because rock bottom is a false floor that just keeps getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And then eventually you reach a certain point of rock bottom and then you come back up. But there's no doubt a further and further point. And I've reached it 3 times in my life. I'm 28 years old. I'm currently back living with my parents. I'm in debt. I have no idea what the future is looking like, and I'm just trying to piece it all back together. My current goal, when all those events happened back in Feb, was basically to stay alive and to not let my business fail. And luckily, I've managed to do both. I'm back in therapy. I'm working on my childhood trauma because that's played a role in my relationship breakdown. But the most important thing throughout this is I'm working on like my own self-worth and self-confidence. And when you have self-worth and self-confidence issues, it basically means that you're unsure about, you're unsure within yourself. You're not confident that you can play that role. You're not confident in a certain domain. So say, for example, me coming from a strength training background, starting running, I may not be as confident in running and my abilities as running as I am with my strength training. That's because I've done it over and over again. So reps to some degree, doing more and more of one thing creates confidence because there's a lot of proof that you've done the thing that you said you're going to do. And there's proof that you're doing the thing that you say you want to do. So when we are so good at looking for patterns that will build confidence naturally, right? Because we just look back through our life, what patterns have occurred, and can we then basically apply meaning to those patterns? So if I'm someone who is confident that every time I turn the cold tap on, cold water is going to come out, and every single time I do that, the thousands of times I do that, then I'm just confident that when the tap's in the cold water position, cold water is going to come out. But if I turn the tap on and one time it's cold water, one time it's hot water, one time it's cold water, one time it's hot water, and I wasn't sure, that every time I'd go for a glass of water, I'd be unsure and not confident that what's going to occur is something that I have predicted. I can't be sure that I'm going to get cold water this time. So because I'm confident in programming, because I've done it thousands of times and I've programmed for people to get goals, I'm confident in that area, I'm confident in that domain. If I programmed and every time I programmed for a goal it failed, I would then become unconfident in programming. I've been in 3 or 4 serious relationships in my life, and when every single one of them has failed, it's really hard to not think that you're a failure in relationships. So if you're someone who's going through a problem with relationships, you're not alone. I am just alongside with you, throwing hand grenades in my life over and over again, and letting relationships fail, or playing a role in relationships fail. Now, the logical common denominator when relationships go wrong is that I am the problem. Not in some martyrdom, self-righteous, I am the problem. But I am the one constant throughout, which means that I played a role in it. And which means I need to take responsibility for the role I played. Nothing more, nothing less. I should not have to take responsibility for the things that occurred to me and that happened to me, but I do have to take responsibility for the role I played, for what I did, and then what I can do to improve. Because to some degree, every time you get in a relationship, you learn more. You sharpen the saw. You get a bit of the other person transferred over to you. Because in all relationships, we are interdependent people. We are people who share energies, we share connections, we share thoughts. And with this passage of sharing thoughts, we create this collective wisdom. And that collective wisdom we can internalize as our own thought process. The hardest difficulty is trying to decipher between what's someone else's words and what is someone else's words that you have then interpreted and then put into your own words. Because sitting there and parroting what someone else has said isn't learning, and doesn't make you wise. It actually makes you dumber because you haven't learned anything. You're just repeating what someone has said. You're just like taking that thing that they've said, and a situation has arose, which means that I can repeat that and parrot that back. So that person who I'm talking to right now thinks I'm smart. That's not learning. Learning is taking it and changing some form of your behavior, or changing the way that you see the world, or changing the way that you act because of the thing that you've learned. But because we are these people that are interdependent and we're just floating between, and we're learning, and we've got this collective wisdom, is that all relationships come down to sharpening the sword. It comes down to learning from this other person, learning from the relationship and getting better, which means that each relationship you should hopefully get better and better and better, unless you're someone who does not seem to take any responsibility or take any reflection upon the relationship, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. But because of that, and because being unconfident in that area, that actually bleeds over into a lot of other areas of my life where I just feel like a lack of worth. And the reason I'm saying this is because I think 2 or 3 things are extremely important in life. One is self-awareness, and one is asking for help. I think the journey of becoming self-aware is the number one thing that you can do to make sure you don't repeat bad patterns and bad habits, and so that you can create a life that you want, not a life that's been created for you from these other people saying things, and you internalizing them as your own thoughts, even though they're not your own thoughts, and you just parroting them back, or just living your life in the way that they have told you to live your life. Because questioning why you feel the way you feel and why you think the way you think is extremely important. What are these thoughts and feelings? What are the words I'm saying? Are they my own words? Are they my own thoughts and feelings? Because they may not be. I think becoming self-aware is extremely important if you've been at rock bottom multiple times, or if you've struggled in relationships, or you've struggled with self-confidence. And I think that by becoming self-aware is that you start to understand why things may have gone wrong. And understanding why things may have gone wrong and the roles you played within that allows you the opportunity to make a change. But understanding the true problem and the part that you played within that, so any situation that's occurred, whether it is a relationship breakdown, whether it's a bad deal at work, whether it's your training not going right, whether it's falling out with your parents or friends and family, by becoming self-aware, you can see the role that you played in it, and then you actually get the power back because you can change that. You need to take responsibility for where you're at, not what happened to you. And what can you actually do about it now? How can you change your patterns? And changing your patterns is really difficult when it's ingrained in us. Like, I'm playing out so many childhood, like my earliest attachments so clearly right now, and it's stupidly hard to change. So that's the reason I've gone back to therapy, because going through therapy is helping me to identify these patterns. It's helping me to understand that actually a lot of what I've been doing is putting a mask on and lying to people and lying to myself. It's allowing me to pick myself apart in a constructive way and have someone just look at me as I'm speaking and questioning what I'm saying. Starting to build this picture up of who is Charlie? Who is the person speaking? Is that me, or is that someone else's words and someone else's voices? Is that me, or is that the people-pleasing part of me? Is that me, or is that me who's afraid of connection? Is that me, or is that me who is afraid of looking dumb? Is that me, or is that me, the person who is afraid of not being accepted? And the reason this is so important is because most psychological theories, or at least all of them for my understanding, understands distress to be a discrepancy between who you actually are in your authentic self and the mask and the facade that you are putting on. And when that discrepancy gets so big that you can no longer recognize this is the person who you actually are, but you can no longer recognize the facade you're putting on, then we have a problem. Because then you are so disconnected from reality that the person you want to be and the person you are isn't getting seen. And because that person's not getting seen, you then will start to go back to coping mechanisms and regress and depression and anxieties and alcoholism and all of the things that we turn to when things aren't feeling right, when there is a bad situation and a bad feeling, that we turn to those things. I've identified so many patterns through therapy. Like, one of the things I identified years ago when I was journaling and going through therapy was that, like, I cried when I wasn't even upset because I was afraid that in an argument that was my partner taking love from me, and the only way I could stop that was for me to cry, because then the argument would stop and then we would basically reconnect. What I've learned recently is that that situation that's actually playing out is a type of love that I look for. I look for the type of love that I never got when I was a kid, or at least the love that I was always trying to get as a kid, which was when I was upset or when I wanted love and I wasn't seen and I didn't get that as a child, by crying would give me that love. And one of the things I've found recently is that the only way that someone, I go for people who don't give me that love straight away, or at least not the way that I wanted it, or the way that I kind of need it in the moment. And that when there's an argument, when there's situations happening, that it takes me resorting to tears for that person to accept me or to love me or for it to change. And that's partly mine and that's partly someone else's. But the really interesting bit about all of this is, like, I've learned so much around my patterns that therapy is one of the biggest things that you can do for creating the life that you want. It's the biggest investment that you could ever make, because your brain controls literally everything. For me, it's the case of, like, if I want to create a business, but I have self-worth issues and self-confidence issues, it means that I'm struggling to push past any of the barriers, or like go out of my comfort zone, or to be able to focus even. It means that, like, the biggest investment that I can make on my time is to actually go and fix my brain, fix the thing that's actually causing me and holding me back. So by doing that, that should unlock a new level of earning power, because I actually have the brain now that can cope with these things. I have a fear of abandonment. So I have a fear of people leaving. And that fear of abandonment can sometimes cause me to abandon myself. And in abandoning myself, I then end up putting this facade on that people fall in love with a person that I'm not necessarily. And that doesn't mean that I'm so far disconnected from that person, because there are genuine parts of me and I try to be genuine all the time. It's just the fact that when there are conflicts, when there are times where I may not get love, it's hard for me to go through those conflicts because I fear that love's going to get taken from me. Learning to tap back into who I am and what I want is actually become extremely important, but extremely hard. I fear confrontation, I fear conflict, I fear being alone, I fear someone not accepting me and loving me. And because of all of this, I self-sacrifice. And that means that what I want and who I am is someone who people pleases. And I do that so that I'm accepted and so that love isn't taken from me. The problem is after a while, you just end up snapping because you can't take it any longer, because of that discrepancy between who you are and who you actually are, and the facade you're putting on. And the snap happens because you roll over and you basically take hit after hit after hit, and then after a certain point, there's only so much you can take. The resentment builds because you haven't said what you truly wanted. You haven't said what your true thoughts and who you genuinely are, what they want. And that resentment that builds then turns into anger. And that resentment then can lead into relationships breaking down, which is kind of one of the things that have happened to me. I'm going to tell you more about that once I continue to go through therapy and once this whole situation is over, and that might be in September. But I suppose I'd like to sum it all up in that manner, to sum it all up what I've been going through. We replay patterns from our childhood and from our earliest attachments. Understanding that has allowed me to see why I love the people I love and the type of people I love, and why I struggle to receive love from anyone else, basically. There is a question that one of my clients asked me. She's a clinical psychologist, and she said to me, does it not matter that you have all of these people around you and who care about you and love you so much and adore you? Do none of these people matter? And do none of that sway your view on wanting to take your own life? And I just said no. Because for me, the person I'm in a relationship with is the person that validates me the most, is the person that I want them to love me. Because if they don't, that means that I'm unlovable. And if I'm unlovable, that means I shouldn't be here. And that's playing out an early attachment wound from my childhood. And it's really hard to rewire. And I don't know if it's something I can rewire. But it's definitely something to be aware of. Internal validation of building up who you are and being confident with your own self is extremely important when the value of someone else's opinion is more than your own. And the reason someone's value and opinion of you is bigger than your own, for me, is because these people can criticize me. The people that are closest to me, they criticize me. That criticism, when I hear it, feels like truth to me because I feel those things. I feel inadequate. I feel not good enough. I feel like I'm an imposter. So when someone points that thing out or points the wrong I did in something, that lights something up in me that I believe within myself, which then makes me feel like they know me and understand me, which means that when they then tell me that they love me or they tell me that what I'm doing is right, I feel over the moon and feel like everything I've wanted's come true. Because if they know the dark side of me, if they know why I'm wrong and why I'm bad, then them saying I'm good must mean I'm good. And that means that I will chase that for the rest of my life unless I can sort out my self-worth issues. That's why I've gone to therapy. And that's something that I would recommend to everyone. Is if you struggle with self-worth issues, going back to parroting what someone else has told you, someone says something you learn, you don't really learn it or adapt it, you just say that same thing. I could guarantee that a lot of the internal voices in your head are things that people have said to you when you were younger and that have stuck. And then that has created the view of yourself. So that when someone says something to you in the future, like you're not good enough, that is something that you've learned from a young age, that you aren't good enough. And that to be good enough, you've either got to provide, you've got to dance, monkey dance, you've got to self-sacrifice, you've got to be quiet and be small, you've got to be the person who always has good grades, you've got to be the person who looks after your mum, you've got to be the person who deals with your dad's anger. When you learn that, it means that the only way you can get love is to reenact those things. And it means that you're not good enough unless you do those things. But that's not necessarily your voice. And that's not necessarily true. That's just what you've learned. I struggle to connect with people and I struggle to hold down a relationship. And that is because of those things. So my goal this year is more self-work, more growth, more internal work. Doing the work. One thing that's helped me through all this is keeping myself busy. What can I read? What can I learn? What can I do? What hobby can I take up? How can I improve myself mentally and physically? When I'm in a period of time where I feel like I don't have much self-worth, I need something to kind of get those wins, to get that positive emotion flowing back. And that normally comes from chasing something, from chasing a goal, from getting closer towards that goal, and from like learning more about myself. So I always go back into, again, hack the body, hack the mind. What can I do for my body? What can I do for my mind? It's bad now. All of it. And I've been here many times, 3 times suicidal, trying to take my own life, drinking whiskey at 10:30 a.m, writing my goodbyes to my friends and family. But I'm here for the love of the people around me, for my friends, for my family, for my colleagues. I'm still here. Not to mention that there's something inside of me that just won't quit for some reason, as often as I've tried and as often as I don't necessarily want to be here. And if you're going through the same thing, you aren't alone. So remember 3 things. You are strong, you are confident, and you are enough. My name's Charlie. This is Hack the Body, Hack the Mind. We will see you on the next one.